Why can't I be the MVP of the league? Why can't I be the best player in the league?
I truly have enjoyed being your quarterback.
Right between the eyes. A spectacular move. Too big, too strong, too fast, too good.
Can't do what we do. We play like we play.
Can you feel that? That thing that's beating in your doggone chest right now. Can you feel that? Can you feel what's about to happen on this field, man?
What is up, diehards? Mr. West is in the building for Awol Sports. But two running backs are not for their respective teams. Ezekiel Elliot over in Dallas, Melvin Gordon over in Los Angeles. It's tough to be a running back, but I have to say this. In regards to Zeke, you have 2 years remaining on the deal. You are a first-round pick, hence a 5-year deal. You've always seemed to have run-ins with the law or some form of trouble every offseason. Dallas with you has reached the postseason 2 out of your 3 campaigns. The one they missed, he only played 10 games, suspended for 6, went down to Mexico, and during that absence, it exposed Dak Prescott and his deficiencies as their quarterback. You may think Zeke's out of line or cutting in line or whatever it may be. He's not wrong. It's a bummer that there's 2 years left and he's doing this now. But it sounds like Dallas was well aware of this at the beginning of the year. Once they lost in the playoffs, season was over. They were forewarned. And it's just a game of chicken now. The backups, 2 rookies, a 4th rounder in Tony Pollard, a speedster, more of a gadget player, or that's how he comes into the league, and that's how the scouts view him. And there's Mike Weber. He's been banged up pretty much every year he plays football. 7th round pick. The one good thing is that I'm hearing during Zeke's absence at camp in the summer and all this is that new offensive coordinator, for better or worse, whether it's a good thing creatively or a struggle that some see coming for a first-time OC, the former quarterback in Kellen Moore has Dak Prescott practicing 4 wide receiver sets. And I love that. He's a quick passer. You don't want him to think too much. He can tuck and run. Spread the defense out and utilize his strengths in the absence of Zeke, but even more with Zeke. Because when you do 4 wide and you have a back flanked to the right or the left of the quarterback, he's got to be good at pass protection. I can't give you the answer if it's Pollard or Weber right now. But I can tell you that week 1, it's probably going to be Alfred Morris. Probably, because he's been in the game a long time. They just brought him back to Big D. He's familiar with the offense. He's filled in for Zeke before. As we just went over during that 6-game suspension a couple of seasons ago, Alfred Morris was the guy. I think Dallas is a playoff caliber team. They'll be in the hunt with Zeke. Without him, And I say that not only because they struggled without him, not only did the quarterback struggle without him, because I think a team can evolve, a player can evolve, especially a quarterback, and that doesn't exclude Dak Prescott. Just because I think Dak Prescott is closer to average than good does not mean he can't develop. Does not mean that some of his deficiencies can be covered up and masked via play action or a new offensive coordinator or going 4 wide, whatever it may be. I'm just saying this, though. If the running back position has gotten to this level of, let's not go the disrespect route, but the skepticism in offering long-term deals, which I understand. I watch a lot of shows, listen to a lot of podcasts, radio, etc. Probably, you probably do as well. And from somewhere, I would love to cite this source, but from somewhere, I think it was on TV somewhere, it might be Fox Sports 1, one of their morning shows, perhaps. Can't really recall, so I won't pinpoint a name at the moment. Maybe I can circle back around if it pops in. But what I'm getting to is, when you draft a running back in the first round, that's a 5-year deal. And really, you can franchise tag him for that 6th year, possibly that 7th year. So when you really think about it, it's going to be extremely challenging, and it's probably really beneficial to teams to draft a running back in the first round. As long as he's got the talent, of course. But that's 7 years right there. Why would you even approach a second contract? I wouldn't. You wouldn't. That's not shrewd business. Not smart. Granted, CBA discussions are underway. There's a chance at a lockout in the next season. So, things are going to change. Am I a fan of the franchise tag? I'm not. Can guys take advantage like Kirk Cousins? Yes. But so were the Washington Redskins. It's not a one-way road. The Redskins, they didn't have a better alternative. They had someone good enough. And you know what? Kirk Cousins is underrated. I'm not saying he's an elite quarterback. He can vie for a position in that second tier. He has those moments. He's been a 600 pass attempt quarterback. That's not easy to do. That means this team is heavily relying on this guy. And he's done it in Minnesota. And finally, he's getting to a point to where they want to operate on the ground, to focus on the running game. Anyways, that's part of why I think Kirk Cousins is underrated, but circling back from that franchise tag and back to Ezekiel Elliott, who doesn't have any leverage in this situation, this is how he gets leverage. Sits out. Dallas goes into the year. They do have an easier, nothing's easy, but an easier schedule to begin the season. If they're winning games, they're going to be riding that high. Cold shouldering Zeke. If they don't, aren't they going to cave? I mean, yeah, Dallas. Rod Marinelli's the defensive coordinator. They have DeMarcus Lawrence, who they resigned after surgery. It may take time, it may not. He may just be who he was to earn that deal. But it may take time. But to losing other guys, whether it be injury or suspensions on that D-line, so this is where Rod Marinelli comes in as the defensive line specialist. He's got to come through for them. The linebacking core is great. We know about the young talent, Jalen Smith, the Wolf, Leighton Vander Esch. And then there's Sean Lee whenever available, if needed. Secondary, solid. It's more good coaching. Chris Richard came over from the Seahawks coaching staff, implementing that cover 3 over here on America's team. So you got to look at the whole picture. Eventually, those linebackers are going to get re-signed. Half of their linemen have multiple years remaining on their deal. The other half, they're going to need to be re-signed. You want to keep that line elite, right? You're trying to convince Zeke and all of us and yourselves, speaking of the Dallas front office here, that it's not the running back, that it's your line and your genius drafting. All right, you're playing chicken. You're trying to prove it. We'll see if you stick to your guns if you're not winning. But yeah, it doesn't look great for Zeke. 2 years on his deal. And you know what? He can look in the same division over at Carson Wentz. He's like, Wentz, first round pick. and he got a contract with 2 years remaining on his deal. I get it. I get it. Zeke feels like he's the best back in football. On the ground, through the air. He's a do-it-all back. There is no question about it. There are questions about Melvin Gordon, who's only had one season over 1,000 yards. A second season, he was shy of 3 yards. Knee concerns coming into the league throughout his early career. And just like Todd Gurley in the same city of LA, over with the Rams, Todd Gurley came into the league with knee concerns. Didn't start off so hot. Gets a new coaching staff. Plays at an elite MVP consideration level. And then, there's still some knee popping up on the injury reports, and the Rams are fine with it. They give him the extension in the offseason. Comes back last year and gets injured again. Knee tendonitis, hardly a factor the second half of the season, the postseason. And they draft a running back in the third round, Darrell Henderson. They kept Malcolm Brown in the mix. They're going to reduce his snaps. Possibly reduce his touches. Prior to Gurley's contract, he had knee concerns. After his contract, they shouldn't be surprised that those knee concerns are popping up again. The Chargers, hopefully they took note of that, and that's why they're not giving in. Nor should they. Melvin Gordon is a better talent than he's been a producer. He's not producing at his talent level, whether it be due to injury, whatever it is. He's just not. He doesn't have leverage here. Justin Jackson, a late round pick, he was a rookie last year, over 4 yards a carry. Austin Eckler, most view him as a change of pace back at best. I think he can do a little bit more of that, but then you have the concerns of durability for an entire season. I think with the combination of the two, the timeshare thing, they can get by in the backfield and move on from Melvin Gordon. The funny thing is, they're only apart in guaranteed money, not on an annual salary where Melvin Gordon's asking for 12 mil, the Chargers are offering 10. That can't be where the difference is, where they can't close the gap on those 2 mil, meet in the middle at 11. So it's got to be in the guaranteed money. You would think it'd be something that they can get done. It looks like Melvin Gordon is going to miss games. As far as Zeke and the Cowboys, it sure looks that way as well. However, I would still put my money on Zeke getting a deal and being in the lineup week 1. The next thing I want to talk about, backup quarterbacks. We think of starting quarterbacks and rank them elite, good, average, below, rookie/unproven, near the bottom or something like that. But as we've seen from the Philadelphia Eagles winning the Super Bowl with Nick Foles after he grabbed the baton from Carson Wentz, it's a big deal to have a legitimate backup. It gives you an advantage. Your season may not be over if your starter goes down. So I went ahead and ranked the top 10 backup quarterbacks in all of football. There's actually 11 now that Josh McCown has delayed his ESPN commentator role for another year to be Carson Wentz's backup in the city of brotherly love. McCown, he's played for a third of the league, mostly as a backup. Doesn't have a lot of wins. I believe it's 23 wins out of 70 starts that he's gotten over the course of his career. But it's someone that you would consider a heady, veteran, pro backup quarterback. More reliable than some other guys because of the age, the wisdom, all that experience. And it probably helps to know a third of the league. He's built so many connections, no wonder he's back in the game. But yeah, so top 10, top 11 backup quarterbacks since McCown is now in the fold. Number 1, Ryan Tannehill of the Tennessee Titans. He's a former starter, first-round pick of the Miami Dolphins. And you know what? He comes to the Titans where Marcus Mariota, he's on a short leash. Both Tannehill and Mariota, whether it works out for whoever it works out for in Tennessee or moves on, they still have a chance at a future. Mariota, he plays similar to Teddy Bridgewater. Yes, the injured Teddy Bridgewater now backing up Drew Brees in New Orleans. That's kind of my pro comp for Mariota. Except I would say Bridgewater can be relied upon to throw more pass attempts. Both can use their feet. Mostly to run, not really to extend plays to throw downfield. And perhaps both would in different circumstances, like if Bridgewater came in for Drew Brees under Sean Payton. He could have improved from the last time we saw him in Minnesota. But yes, going back to Mariota, he's probably the week 1 starter. I don't think he's a lock. I don't think he's going to be looking over his shoulder. That's what he's going to be doing. Ryan Tannehill, I was behind, third year of his career. He ranked 8th in all major quarterback categories. He hasn't played the position for forever like a lot of these other guys. He was a wide receiver. He converted. And I'm more patient with quarterbacks than most analysts and fans. I think Tannehill still has a future. I think he can do some positive things, perhaps a playoff appearance for Tennessee, if he were ever inserted into that lineup. Number 2, Tyrod Taylor, another former starter. He's played with the Ravens, the Bills, the Browns. He's a Charger now behind Phillip Rivers. He's got the experience. He's got the mobility. He's a likable guy. He's a leader. It's a pretty good spot for him. It's a pretty good spot. Older quarterback. He's tough. He's been an Iron Man. But that's not going to last forever. It's a good move by the Bolts. Tyrod, if he came in, I don't see too much of a drop-off offensively for the Chargers. Not to slight Phillip Rivers. I just kind of see the ingredients, and I like how he can cook with them. Number 3, Jacoby Brissett. He's more of a prospect, I know, but he did get some playing time. He learned from Tom Brady, now Andrew Luck. He got to play in a couple of games when Brady went down, when Brady was suspended a few years ago. Then he gets traded to the Colts. Luck out of the lineup with his shoulder injury, and he got to start. He's got some experience under his belt. He's got a good arm. He shows potential. I'm not sure that he's going to be a backup his entire career. I would think he gets another opportunity to earn a role under center. As this next guy, number 4 on my list, Teddy Bridgewater. We just spoke about him a little bit. Again, former starter, now with Brees, Sean Payton. We know he's mobile. He's very efficient, completes a high percentage of his passes. He's taken to the Vikings to the playoffs. He is more than an adequate quarterback. I would say he's above average, and if you had to ask me if I would take, where would I put Teddy Bridgewater? And what quarterback tier? Probably with Alex Smith. Hopefully he has a quicker recovery. Hopefully he gets back in the game. But yeah, I put Teddy Bridgewater in the tier with Alex Smith, Dak Prescott, and I know he's a little less proven, but Mitch Trubisky, I kind of throw in that tier. I think that's where Teddy Bridgewater would slide right in. We've seen him win games. Number 5, Robert Griffin III, RG3. He was a star his rookie year. Attitude, personality. We saw his downfall. We did. But we saw the Redskins win, make the playoffs. He was Offensive Rookie of the Year, number 1 overall pick. Man, to fall from grace like that, that's rough. But he saved face. He's still in the league. He got another contract. And right now he's in Baltimore behind Lamar Jackson. All right, fine, no big deal. That was a high draft pick of Baltimore. So he should get it. He's there. It fits his style of play. And maybe, just maybe, he'll get a chance. I'm not saying he's going to be signed by another team to be the starter. I'm not saying he's going to eventually replace Lamar Jackson, although anything can happen. Y'all know that. But I think he could get a chance. Like if Mariota was out of Tennessee, I think Mariota would get a chance. Not necessarily a lock, signed contract, a given, oh, you're our starter now. But to compete. Number 6, I have Ryan Fitzpatrick. Some of you may have him higher on this list. I like the other guys on this list. Not only are they younger than him, they still have a little bit of potential to fulfill in their various manners. Fitzpatrick, he is who he is. Nothing wrong with that. Streaky passer. He's best known as a spot starter, mostly a career backup. You probably remember the first 4 or 5 games in Tampa Bay last year. He was blazing. He was Fitzmagic. So he's for sure on this list, for sure capable to step right in. He probably could have a Nick Folesian-like playoff run down the stretch if he had to fill in, be the relief pitcher. I can see that. He's definitely an elite backup, and that's not poking fun at him or being a backup quarterback. Like I said, I think it's important. Number 7, Case Keenum. He's mostly been a backup, but he does have starting experience, and what I can't shake from my mind, the NFC title game run with Minnesota. Played during the regular season, into the playoffs. He's not the sole reason the Vikings lost to the Eagles in the title game and didn't go to the Super Bowl to play at their home stadium. Case Keenum had a great year. Got a contract from Denver the following year, 2018. It was ugly. Ugly football. But like I said, if I see something out of you, that's all I need out of a backup quarterback is that, I can rely on you for a few games. The goal isn't to need you for 8 to 16 games. The goal is to need you for a handful or less. That's where I like Case Keenum. And I guess the same can be said for a handful of games or less about Blake Bortles. Not everyone's favorite starter, but he started. He was the first rounder. And now he's backing up Jared Goff. He gets to learn from Sean McVay. And we'll see if not only can he be a game manager. Let's be fair about Bortles and his situation. He hasn't had a good offensive coach. I'm not backing him up. I don't buy him. But he's played a lot of games. He made a playoff run, a game shy of the Super Bowl, just like Case Keenum. So, we saw Jared Goff, his teammate now. That rookie year was ugly. It was Jeff Fisher, who doesn't have a great reputation for having a strong offense or even an adequate offense, and especially for having a hand in helping his quarterback. Bortles, I think we all can agree, is in the best situation of his career. Daniel Jones. I had him originally at number 9, but now the Eagles have lured Josh McCown away from the ESPN booth for at least one more season of football. McCown has a win over, 23 wins and 70 starts, I believe, something around that. He's played for a third of the league, a lot of connections, a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom. Not only can he aid Carson Wentz in the quarterback room with a clipboard and kind of be an additional coach, not only is it beneficial to the starter in Wentz, but also to the backup that's been in their system for a few years, but he's still a young guy, and that's Nate Sudfeld. Yeah, he did suffer a setback with an injury. He'll be back early in the season, just not from day one. So that makes the answer easy. Who would back up Carson Wentz if he got injured again? That'd be McCown. He's the healthy vet. He's been around the game, known as a backup, and you know, he wasn't the best starter. He was a backup for a reason, but I will say he does have some Nick Folesian-like moments. He can get streaky for a couple of games. Foles, a little bit more talented, but he was brushed under the rug as well. McCown retired. He's getting pulled back in, and he's going to be the number 2. He's going to be very beneficial to the Eagles. So now we go to Daniel Jones at number 10, first-round pick. He's been groomed by the Mannings. That's Peyton, Eli, and their father Archie, and played at Duke. More of an unknown. I don't think he has much, if any, pocket awareness at this time, if you watched him in the first 2 preseason games. But here's what I like. He's aggressive, and he sees the play downfield. He throws it. Sometimes it's complete. Sometimes it's not. But he's had a couple of nice highlight plays. They were nice. So, we know the Giants are going to come in with a short passing game that's beneficial to Eli and the offensive line and the wide receivers, because they're all kind of lacking talent aside and around Saquon Barkley. Daniel Jones, it doesn't seem like his opportunity will come due to an Eli Manning injury, but rather performance-based. And then the final guy on my list, number 11, DeShone Kizer over in Green Bay. This guy was a second-round draft pick. Got some time to start with the Browns. Backed up a little bit there. Now Aaron Rodgers back up. New coach. GM's fairly new. Aaron Rodgers is getting up there in age. I'm not saying he's going to retire in a year or two, but their answer at quarterback may be on the roster if we take a peek into life after Aaron Rodgers. Y'all know what time it is. Joey B is in the house.
What's going on, everyone?
Hey.
I'm happy to be back again.
Hey, gonna help everybody with some fantasy advice?
I'll try my best. We'll see. I mean, I'm just out here to do my greater good for the cause of all of our fantasy football friends and people out there that need help like I did when I first started.
'Tis the season.
To be somewhat jolly.
'Tis the mother effing season.
Hey, man, we only got, what, a whole entire month?
Of
we're
July.
back to at least some kind of tantalizing pleasure on getting to drafts and watching ESPN all day and, you know, the NFL Network and stuff. So we're right around the corner, thankfully.
At the precipice.
The precipice. I agree.
All right, man. So I have about... There's more handcuffs in this.
Mm-hmm.
I got about half a dozen.
Mm-hmm.
Just throwing some names out there to help everyone out.
Sure.
With their drafts. Here are the handcuffs.
Okay.
And I'll go one by one. You shoot on each one.
Mm-hmm.
Royce Freeman.
Okay. Royce Freeman is an oddball because the guy is so talented, but you just have this guy who is undrafted, who came out of Colorado, who runs angrier than I think I've ever seen anyone run. There's a guy named Philip Lindsay, who I think has solidified himself to be their number 1 running back, but they always had it in the back pocket of them saying, you know, he's our number 1 guy, but once we figure out Royce, we're going to break off the load kind of thing.
Right.
Kind of like Le'Veon Bell and James Conner. It's like, hey, man, don't get too comfortable. But I don't think, granted, he did get injured at the end of the year, speaking in terms of Lindsay. Thanks. He did get injured at the end of the year, but I mean, dude, this is coming from someone that owned him in both of my leagues last year.
As did I.
He was phenomenal.
He was.
And he was guaranteed to get production. I mean, I think the lowest he did last year was, 11 or 12 points, something like that. He did fantastic. I think Royce Freeman could be kind of inch in a little bit and get some productivity, but I think that backfield is dominated by him, especially since they have Booker in the backfield too, who is kind of more of a catching back or pass catching back. I just think Royce Freeman is that weird guy. It's like he could have Lindsey's year that he had last year, this year, but Lindsey can also just say, "Hey, man,
I'm breaking away.
sit
my-
back.
my
This
job."
is my. You can hit my, if I need a breather, you can hit my thing." Because I think we've seen enough results out of a rookie year, for Lindsey in order
Regardless
for
of
him
how
to
he
do
was picked up.
exactly.
Doesn't matter. First
Regardless,
round,
and that's what
undrafted.
makes it more impressive, though, in my opinion, is that he went to a smaller college. He didn't get drafted. He walked on, and from day one, no one knew about Philip Lindsey.
He put on for his city.
And he
Hometown
put on
team.
for that city, man. So I think Royce Freeman, if maybe if you want to handcuff him because somebody else in the draft before you or after you, whatever, has Philip Lindsey's in the earlier rounds. If you want to do it as a just in case, I think obviously we can all agree that if Philip Lindsey, God forbid, gets injured at some point in time, we know who the secondary
Yeah.
up the plate would be. It's not
Without
going
a
to be
doubt.
Booker. It's going to be Royce Freeman, and he can be productive. So
Yeah.
it's not a bad call to draft. I wouldn't draft him per se. I mean, if
Watch
you want
list.
to, watch list. Definitely look at the waiver wires for him and stuff. See how that's a personnel that you have to watch attentively on reports from the coaches, especially since Elway is very, very vocal about his personnel. So
I'm glad you brought him
that's
up.
what I would do.
Because that's kind of what I'm hinting towards by even bringing up Royce Freeman.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it, for better or worse, Elway's kind of a stubborn guy.
Sure. Especially with quarterbacks.
Royce Freeman was a third-round pick
Mm-hmm.
who averaged over 4 yards a carry. He had a good season.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that Lindsey had a great season.
Mm-hmm.
Throwing the whole third-round pick into the mix with Lindsey's end of the season injury. I wanna say I'm a PL guy. I'm all over Philip Lindsey.
Sure.
No brainer. I have no reservations myself.
Mm-hmm.
But just,
Everyone loves that fro, man.
right? I love it, dude. He better not get rid of it. Once Kobe got rid of his, I was
I know.
bummed.
Yep. Not the same.
But yeah, man. I'm all on Philip Lindsey, but just looking at a possibility of something possibly coming to fruition,
Mm-hmm.
we could see more Royce Freeman than anybody wants to see.
Yeah.
I'm a little afraid of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a possibility. I wouldn't go reality.
Yeah, I think we're leaning more towards the fact of it being a split committee,
Yeah.
like a RBC kind of thing, than we are seeing where Royce Freeman just completely takes over. I think it'll be more if worst case scenario for Philip Lindsey owners and stuff, the worst case scenario would be a 60-40%. I don't know
Yes.
if it'll go 50-50%.
Agreed.
I don't
Around
think
there.
it'll go anything more than that. I think it'll be 60% Lindsey, 40% Freeman. And, if you want to, even though it's 100%, divvy it down to a little bit of Booker when it comes to having the efficiency. Hey, is this guy good enough to keep in our roster if we have two elite guys? So
Or maybe they trade one of them.
maybe they do.
Who knows?
Royce Freeman's not a bad pick to get value for someone that you can almost guarantee will be productive. Doesn't matter how much productivity he has, whether big or small, you can get a good price for him, and then maybe you can ease up a little bit of salary cap. So
Yep.
we'll see.
We will see.
I think Freeman's a good choice.
I mean, didn't we see Denver years back trade Clinton Portis
Mm-hmm.
for Champ Bailey? Granted, but it.
Yeah, you alleviate
something.
one end, and then you help the other.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think there's some things that can be done in Denver. They have some assets.
Yeah, especially since with it helps Freeman a lot, and also helps Lindsey is Flacco loves his options.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that he spreads the ball around very well. He loves his tight ends, and he loves his running backs. So I think we'll see productivity for the running backs. I don't think either one of them that you pick, you can get value from, but obviously I think the value is substantially higher
PL.
when it comes to PL. Yeah.
Yep. All right, next man on the list. And this is kind of more of an indicator. I know you're more on Damian Williams in Kansas City than I am.
Mm-hmm.
Carlos Hyde.
I'm a stay very, very far away kind of guy.
Ooh, 10-foot pole.
Look at what he did in Cleveland.
Okay.
Can anybody give me legit?
3.4 yards per carry,
Yeah,
63 yards rushing a game.
not impressive for how many games too that he was there. It was very little.
6.
Yeah, very little. And it's not like it's not like Duke Johnson, right? Duke Johnson Jr. in Cleveland has solidified himself to be a pass catching back. Carlos Hyde is this in suspension, like he's
Tweener?
suspended in the air. He's like, can he run the ball? Well, not that well. Well, can he catch the ball? Oh, not that well. So I think he's like the definition of a handcuff. It's like, let's keep this guy here. Let's make sure that if our number one guy, I think Damian Williams, I've said since the beginning when they dropped Kareem Hunt and when we saw Damian Williams going from the latter part of the year all the way into the playoffs, that this guy's the next real big deal, especially since they had who they have, Charkanjic Wests, who else did they have? Spencer Ware.
Yeah, Spencer.
And they said Spencer Ware is going to be the guy, and Damian Williams says, hold my football, man. I got this for you. So I think they're doing it. Hey, this is our guy. I think Damian Williams can finish a top 6 running back. I legitimately think they do. But I think it's, hey, man, this is our insurance. All it is a C.J. Anderson with
very good.
With
Todd Gurley.
see how little he's becoming into remembrance now because of his old question mark. But like that though, it's an insurance policy. That's what if I were to name Carlos Hyde anything, it's insurance policy.
Fair enough. And for the record, Carlos Hyde has 0 1,000-yard seasons. And
He's a very, very. I mean, he's a huge risk. But I mean, if it's profitable, I mean, I guess the reward is not huge. It could be, you might win your money back on how much you're risking. I wouldn't draft him by any means.
okay.
But you never know.
And as I'm looking, I know he didn't get 1,000. He had 900 plus in 2 seasons.
Which seasons and with who? It was
San Fran both.
yeah.
San Fran.
Yeah.
Good offenses at the time. And most catches in the season was 59.
Yeah, that's low, man.
Think it's low?
Standard PPR leagues.
You don't think it's high for Carlos Hyde?
For Carlos Hyde,
high-
sure, that's
high
high.
for him.
But I'm talking about like productivity. Like someone like Damian Williams is going to get that in the first 7-8 weeks. You think?
You think
Maybe?
so?
Maybe, if not 8-9 weeks.
Okay.
So I don't think and I think Kansas City, especially with Andy Reid, is so stubborn. This is our guy. We're going to stick with him. We need an insurance policy. So I think that's what Carlos Hyde is,
Fair
in
enough.
my opinion.
Fair enough.
So, folks, if you're on the wire, if you're on the fence, I would say stay away until further notice.
There's other options. All right. How about Latavius Murray over in New Orleans? I'm not so high on Alvin Kamara.
Yes.
I don't know he could play every down, every week kind of thing. That's why he's on this list.
Now, I think for me, we wouldn't have an Alvin Kamara if there wasn't that back roll position, that handcuff position that he was playing when Mark Ingram was in New Orleans.
Right.
Not comparing him, saying that he can be as I think from what we've seen with Latavius Murray, he's never been this unbelievable guy. There was a couple games in 2017 when Dalvin Cook came out and he had a big game or two, but he doesn't have that. He's like that middle of the line guy. Like if you were to, your upper echelon guys are A, B, C. He's in that C to low C to high D range, I would say. I don't think he'll steal much from Alvin Kamara. I think that's why they abandoned Mark Ingram and didn't try to go for his free agency. I think they can get more out of Alvin Kamara than they can with Mark Ingram. And I think another insurance policy is Latavius Murray. I think Latavius Murray is just is Alvin Kamara Jr. when we have Alvin Kamara Sr. running the ball. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like everything you can do, I can do way better.
Way
so
better.
I think, and I made this off air, this assumption that I really do assume that they're going to give maybe, no, I wouldn't say more than 6 to 8 touches a game for Latavius Murray. And it'll just be for, maybe a huge run came out, but I don't think they're going to be as keen to steal his red zone carries like they did with Mark Ingram.
Fair.
Like they run the ball all the way down. Alvin Kamara catches the ball all the way down. They get to the 2-3 yard line, and they bring Mark Ingram in, and he gets 3 touchdowns in a game, but only 50-something yards and 8 carries, but 30-something fantasy points because he's stealing the touchdown.
Yeah, vulture.
He's vulturing, right? I don't think we'll see that for Latavius Murray. I really don't.
All right. I see it. I will add, Kamara was second in the NFL in rushing touchdowns in the red zone. 13.
Yeah,
they use him in there.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I don't know what the records are for Mark Ingram, but there was enough to where that
there was
12,
a change of the guard. I think.
Yeah. That 12 could have been 16, or that 12 could have been 17. If it wasn't for Mark Ingram, I don't think we'll see that. I think we'll see the full 17 if you were to lay it out as if it was last year. We'll see all red zone touchdowns come from Kamara, with the exception of maybe 1, maybe 2 from Latavius Murray.
And yeah, you're right. Ingram stole 7 of those.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, he got his money's worth. If you draft Kamara, you're gonna get your money's worth. If you draft Latavius Murray, you might just be losing money. So,
ouch.
We'll see.
And
every one of these guys, we'll see. Like I said at the beginning of this handcuff, you're not gonna know until you have an Alvin Kamara, until you have an Alvin Kamara production, until they have the opportunity. When your coach gives you that opportunity, and you are the handcuffed back, and you're in the back seat, and you're waiting for my chance, that's your time to shine. And that's why Alvin Kamara is the sole running back on his team right now. So you never know.
And I agree.
Thank you.
I just have concerns.
We all do, man. We all do.
All right. Does Gio Bernard in Cincinnati have any chance to make a fantasy impact? New offense, new coach.
Yeah.
Joe Mixon. He was hurt last year a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And actually, Giovanni Bernard actually had a pretty good filler spot, a good opportunity. I just think that, the thing is with running backs, man, as a fantasy owner, you're sitting there, you're licking your chops when you picked up that handcuff, and that main running back, the RB1 gets, he's out for a couple games like Joe Mixon with Giovanni Bernard, and you go, here we go, baby. But the Bengals, for a running back, if your team is never ahead, if your team is below and is always trying to catch up, running backs are out of the option. That's when wide receivers, man, when you have that, like A.J. Green with Tyler Boyd, perfect example.
John Ross stealing touchdowns.
Exactly. When A.J. Green gets hurt, and that team's always going to be down, and they throw the deep ball, that's why Tyler Boyd was so relevant.
Yes.
Not the same when it comes to, maybe if it's Sony Michel and James White or something of that, a team that you can guarantee will most times,
Melvin Gordon, Austin Eckler,
will most times be ahead, where they can milk the clock, and they're going to get an extra 15, 20 yards a drive because they're running out the clock. Giovanni Bernard is a different thing because of the Bengals. We don't know. They just picked up a new stud in the backfield I for the life of me can't think of the guy's name, but they picked him up, and they even asked Giovanni Bernard, how much relevance does this guy have in your guys' backfield, because it's you, Joe Mixon, and him. So it's like,
Travion Williams.
Yes. He's from which school?
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M. Thank you. One of the million Texas schools out there I was thinking of. So, it's like, how do you fill? I think Giovanni Bernard has less productivity than Latavius Murray does this year. I just think with Joe Mixon, the only thing that can change that is how healthy Joe Mixon will stay. If he stays healthy, just don't even think about. The guy can catch better than anyone on that team.
Yes.
The guy that can run the ball better than that team. Mm-hmm. The guy is more elusive than anybody on that team. He's your number one guy. So I would say out of this whole entire list that you said so far, so far.
Gio's the least.
Well, I would say Giovanni's the least, but
valuable.
I think with what he has, I think Joe Mixon can probably outproduce any of the guys that they're handcuffed to, if that makes sense. So every guy like Royce Freeman with
Philip Lindsay,
I think Joe Mixon is better. Carlos Hyde with Damian Williams, I think Joe Mixon is better. I think he's going to be more productive. I think with Latavius Murray with Alvin Kamara, I legitimately think Joe Mixon can be more productive than Alvin Kamara.
All right.
I think it's a possibility.
Draft Mixon top 5?
I would say 6, maybe 7.
At the highest.
Yeah, I say Alvin Kamara goes first. I think Alvin Kamara has a better year. I think because of the cards that are being dealt with Joe Mixon and the Bengals, I think Joe Mixon can have more productivity. I don't think he'll do better per se. I think he'll have more productivity than Alvin Kamara. I think his chances are better. So I think it makes Gio Bernard's
stock
way down.
All right.
So we'll see with that.
How about a guy that kind of came onto the scene, not really a household name, over in Baltimore.
Oh, the old bus.
Who just signed Mark Ingram, and their quarterback, all he does is run.
The old Gus Bussy.
Gus Edwards.
He's how
murky is that picture?
For the people that, I guess speaking for the people out there that had him last year, you weren't really displeased with him. If he was one of those guys,
I had him.
You weren't displeased with him, I'm assuming for the time that you had him. No one drafted him. You can't tell me anyone drafted him.
No.
So, if you had him for 3 or 4 weeks, he did what you needed for 3 or 4 weeks.
And especially
if you were looking around, you're going, "What is going on? This guy's hurt. That guy's hurt. I need this. I need someone to step up." He was steamrolling carries. He was going over 20. I'm assuming.
Easy. He
was steamrolling. I mean, his touchdown production was a little low, but this guy was going off on yards, going off on carries, going off on catches, all this stuff, yada yada yada. So
I'll put it this way. I got lucky. I had Philip Lindsay and Gus Edwards.
There you go. That's all you need.
When I drafted Devontae Freeman, injured, and David Johnson down near, till like the latter part of the season, Gus Bus helped.
Oh, yeah.
Along with P.O.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
I think what we might see
are they going to run like 20 times Ingram, 20 times Gus?
I wouldn't be surprised.
7 times Lamar Jackson?
Well, especially, they cleared the house of the backfield. They got Mark Ingram. They kept Gus Edwards. They got rid of Buck Allen, I believe.
Yep.
And they got rid of who's the other guy? I'm spacing on him once again, and it's embarrassing.
It's all good. I'll find him.
But so they cleared out the backfield, and now that they put the money in and they got Mark Ingram, I think what we might see here, because of how elusive Lamar Jackson is, and how much they're trying to double down on his passing, we're going to see this weird hybrid child of Seattle Seahawks offense and the New Orleans Saints offense when it comes to running and passing, having an elusive, versatile quarterback, but it'll be a very weird stepchild of him. It won't be as good, but it'll be the same exact scheme. I legitimately would not be surprised if Gus and Mark Ingram split the game straight down the middle. You pass, you catch. Or you catch, and then you run. And then the next play, the guy that passed, flip-flop it.
So you think it's day one timeshare?
I think it's day one timeshare. I think because you cannot take away from what Gus did and how productive he was last year when they needed it. They needed a running back, and they got him. They had him. So
I think Gus has to fight for that job.
For sure.
Role. I think
sure.
Ingram will get the nod being a veteran.
Definitely.
And, getting the contract.
Definitely.
The other guy we were talking about was Alex Collins.
Alex Collins, thank you.
The Ravens also drafted Justice Hill. Mm-hmm. So,
maybe a guy in development, there's very rare instances where a guy is, depending on the round they were drafted and how much hype, yada, all this stuff, that they take up that much room and become that much of a threat against someone who's established himself to be a legit running back one, which is Mark Ingram, and a guy who has stepped foot in and said, hey man, if you need me, I'm here, which is Gus Edwards. So I think it's those two. I think we might see a 55-50 split, or a 55-45 split. I don't think we'll see much of a split
with the third justice.
Yeah.
Okay. And kind of just looking at red zone touchdowns. Back to that. Alex Collins had 7. Mark Ingram had 6. Philip Lindsay had 6. So something to look at. I think.
Well, where did Collins go to?
I'd have to look that one up.
Because I don't know. I for the life of me, I don't think he retired or anything. Maybe he got handcuffed to a team to where
free agent.
Oh, see, he's a free agent. I mean, who knows if he gets picked up? How old is he? About
34.
I'm gonna say 34. Yeah.
No, he's number 34.
I wouldn't be surprised if he was 34 though. I mean, he's getting at least close to it. I'm assuming, right? The youngest I'll say is 29.
No. He's 24.
No way. No kidding.
I guess so.
Holy moly.
Little did we know about Alex freaking Collins.
Hey guys, we just slipped on the banana peel on that one. My God, we were off. I was off by 10 years.
For the record, he went to Arkansas. If anyone cares,
I must say though, poor guy. He's had productivity. There was a year there where he was the number one guy. He had got a good amount of touchdowns. I think this is the 2017 season, but he was now running like he's 34. I'm just gonna say that. Anyway, so
he's only second to Darren McFadden, by the way, in Arkansas history.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
In rushing yards.
Yeah, I remember his. But so far, I would say the number one guy to pick up is Gus Edwards. Nice. I would draft Gus Edwards.
I like it. And then one last question. 2 different teams. If you had to choose a running back for fantasy football from the Buffalo Bills and from the San Francisco 49ers. Now, Buffalo, they got Shady McCoy, Frank Gore, Devin Singletary, TJ Yeldon. They got 4 dudes back there. That's probably a situation you want to stay away from. Nonetheless, if you're in a league, 12-team league, 14-team league,
pick up 2 guys.
You got to pick up someone from that team with opportunities it carries and touches. Is it still Shady?
I say if real quick, if I were to rank those 4 guys, I would say the least productive is Frank Gore. I think we can agree with that. Is maybe age, and they picked him up solely for the aspect of it being, hey, he's one of the greatest running backs of all time in terms of career rushing yards and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think there's a big question mark with LeSean McCoy starting it. I think we said this on the last podcast is, what he did in Philadelphia was astonishing, but ever since he made to Buffalo, he's had maybe one all right season.
It's been
and
tough
then it's
over
just steamrolled since, or just like dumpster fired it since then. He hasn't steamrolled at all. I would say maybe. Who do you think would start?
Well, Shady's gonna get the first crack, but they weren't hesitant to throw in other guys last season. The safe bet is Shady McCoy. It's a safe bet. I think the wild card, TJ Yeldon. I'm gonna call him the wild card of the group
for sure.
I think Devin Singletary, being the rookie, is gonna learn.
I think Singletary. I think because of the desperation of the Buffalo Bills and how much they've added to their arsenal of passing, that they can get away with a little bit of rushing.
And their quarterback runs.
Yeah, I think Singletary might be the number one. I think because of LeSean McCoy's lack of. It doesn't seem like he wants to roll anymore, if that makes sense. It doesn't seem like he really has a desire. It also doesn't seem like there's been much of competition, obviously, in the backfield to where he's worried about. But now I think because we've seen, this will be his make or break. The first 2 or 3 games, I would say, would be his make or break. Okay, I need to get my stuff together, or else I'm losing my job here. And I think Singletary will be the guy to do it, and TJ Yeldon will be the passing,
awesome,
catching.
Okay.
Running back. But I would, if I were to pick between the 2, you said San Francisco or Buffalo, correct?
So now San Francisco.
Oh, I see.
Matt Breida.
Oh, so who would I draft out of both these teams?
Out of Buffalo, who would you draft?
I see. I would draft Singletary.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, will I do that? Draft anybody from
So you're
Buffalo?
probably staying away.
Absolutely not. I'm staying away, but if I were to say who, it'd probably be Singletary, 15th round, the earliest.
And
now,
then
San Francisco.
San Fran, they got Matt Breida, played last year. Tevin Coleman signs as a free agent. Jerick McKinnon signed last year, got hurt.
I would go, out of all those, I would firmly go Jerick McKinnon because they spent the money on him. They got him for a reason. They kept him even though they knew before the season even started, before drafting even happened in fantasy, that the guy's not going to play, and they still kept him. That obviously means that they want the guy. And I think from what we've seen him play is that it's solid enough to where you can firmly say this is the RB1. And the other two guys are it's gonna be this gladiator match of who, because we know Tevin Coleman is productive in the passing game.
But you think he's a firm RB1, Jerick McKinnon?
I would say he's a firm.
You think he's?
I would say he's the first guy on the field. He's gonna be the first guy on the field. The first snap, he'll be the first guy on the field. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was the last guy on the field for the first game.
Do you think Tevin Coleman kind of retains his role that he had in ATL?
The pass catching,
kind of
him and like Ito Smith, how they kind of
third down back.
Yeah, the guy that you'll occasionally see in, kind of like Austin Eckler, where he can run the ball, but he can also catch the ball. I think the biggest one is Breida. Like the question mark, what do you do with Breida?
Is he the guy that basically, you know how teams will have their starter and then their change of pace back, and then sometimes if they have a third back, if that feature back goes down. Back number 3 becomes that feature back, leaving that change of pace back in his role so they don't have to shift so many roles. So Breida, if anything happens to McKinnon, Breida could be that guy to get McKinnon snaps, touches, etc., maybe to a lesser degree, to split with Tevin.
Okay, yeah, I know.
Because teams do that.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. I think we saw that with Philadelphia.
Oh yeah,
with Philadelphia was a big one.
Yep. Chargers too, because didn't they give carries to Justin Jackson when Melvin went down?
Well, I think that's especially if you're a team that's in you're not worrying about not making the playoffs, you're making the playoffs regardless. You have that time and ability to say, hey man, this is your moment. You want to be on this team, prove it. I think the San Francisco 49ers are going to be elite with their offense. I do think they'll be in the upper echelon of offenses, top 12, with how much weapons they have. Jimmy Garoppolo's back. How productive they actually were without a legit quarterback starting. Two people two quarterbacks came in and replaced them.
CJ Beathard, Nick Mullins.
Their running back game was a big question mark. Their pass catchers receivers were a big question mark. The leadership seemed a little askew, so I think I would draft Jerick McKinnon earliest round. I would say maybe 12th, 11th.
Okay.
I wouldn't probably go more than that.
Not gonna reach. Not gonna reach for a guy coming off an knee.
I wouldn't waste it. I would if I'm going deep draft like that, I would probably want to get myself a more established player, like a wide receiver, like Dante Pettis, or anyone that you can see yourself being where you'll get so much bang for your buck.
More of a hit on your draft.
Exactly. So Jerick McKinnon's good. I don't think and any of these three guys, legitimately, I don't think you would be displeased with any of them, knowing the knowledge that we'll know in a few months.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
I do. All right,
we'll see.
I'm gonna sneak in one question.
Okay.
Don't need to elaborate, but we can revisit it on the next episode.
Okay.
If you had to pick one guy, Rams rookie Darrell Henderson, or Chargers second year back Justin Jackson. If you had to pick one guy to make a fantasy impact, I know there's Todd Gurley, Malcolm Brown for the Rams. I know there's Melvin Gordon, Austin Eckler. The knee bug kind of hits both teams. Give the diehard listeners one guy. Darrell Henderson, Justin Jackson.
Well, I mean, I think the obvious pick.
It kind of comes down to which feature back you trust the least.
Right.
Gurley and Gordon, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think going into this year, Gurley, so Darrell Henderson might be the easier pick.
Easier
you go,
pick.
hey man, this guy is going to have to fill a role because we've said before the season even started that we need to figure it out because we don't trust Todd Gurley. And it's like, dude, this is coming from a guy 2 years in a row that was the number one running back. What happened? So,
And plus, we saw what C.J. Anderson did.
so I think you know, I think Henderson's the better pick. For sure. I think Justin Jackson, I don't think he'll have much productivity because of how well Austin. I think the only reason why we saw productivity out of him, and it wasn't that much productivity, was because of Melvin Gordon rather, got injured. Now I think obviously a good sneak pick to pick would be Justin Jackson if that other fantasy owner of Melvin Gordon, he gets injured and you want to scoop him up real quick, then that's a smart pick. But I think definitely Dale Henderson.
I like it, man. Thanks for stopping by as usual.
Thank you, sir. That was a good one. A lot of hot stuff, a lot of hot topics, especially handcuffs, man. Handcuffs are bold conversations.
Hot topic. We at the mall?
Always, baby.
Cool, man.
Thanks again, man. I appreciate it.
And someone we mentioned earlier, former quarterback for the 49ers, Chiefs, currently with the Redskins, but recovering from a gruesome leg injury. Alex Smith. He's had a couple playoff runs, some NFL success. Well, according to Joe Theismann, former Redskins quarterback, and he was interviewed, and he said, quote, "In Alex's case, it is a long road. It is a tough road, and I would be surprised if he plays again just because of the age factor. When it comes to Alex's rehab, having gone through it, it's a 2-year process. So from the time he really starts to step back on a football field, you have to figure 2 years." So Joe Theismann, he also suffered from a gruesome injury back in his playing days that ended his career. So he is speaking firsthand from experience, unfortunately. He's on the same team, so that's what are the odds of that? But yeah, so Alex Smith, he's like, quote, "I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited about the challenge. The stronger I get every week, the more I do, the more hopeful I am that that's a real possibility. There are some steps. I've got to conquer some more steps before I get there. Learn to run again. That's a big one. I'm already throwing. I already feel like throwing is not a problem. I feel like I can throw, but dropping, moving around, all that kind of stuff, change of direction," end quote. So yeah, Theismann continued, "God bless him. I know we want him to come back. I want him to be healthy, but it's more than just being able to run. It's the throwing mechanism that'll be affected, and how long will that take? He's another 2 months away from really starting to rehab. And then you run into the adhesions that are built up around the ankle because you haven't been able to flex the ankle. So that's another element. There's multiple issues that you have to go along with it." So yeah, it's tough for the 35-year-old Smith. He's got to wear the external fix, or actually he got this external fixator. It was on his leg. That's off. That was a huge step. That's all for him. Congratulations. And Smith also added, quote, "Believe it or not, this thing is going to save my leg, save my bone, allow me to heal and walk again, and hopefully play football again." So, good for him. Good for him. I mean, Washington is likely to move on from Alex Smith, who just drafted Dwayne Haskins in the first round, signed Case Keenum to be the stopgap starter, perhaps, a long-term backup for them. That's not a bad plan if Haskins turns out and pans as they hope. So, off the top of my head, I'm thinking Alex Smith, he may return as a backup initially, perhaps to New England, to Pittsburgh, backing up one of the other great older quarterbacks. Any opportunities during the starting gig, who knows? Football can be so year to year. Someone can get injured. That can change a lot. He could return to Washington if Haskins suffers an injury or whatever the case may be. I'm not wishing anything on anyone. Those are just possibilities. So we're going to stick to the quarterback topic here. And just imagine you're the New Orleans Saints with Drew Brees. You're the Chargers with Phillip Rivers, the Steelers with Ben Roethlisberger, the Patriots with Tom Brady. These are great QBs. Very good to great. And they all have playoff, and take that to another level, Super Bowl aspirations. So how many games do you give each of these quarterbacks? Long-time successful quarterbacks. How many games do you give them? If they're having an abysmal season, do you go the Giants route with Eli Manning and just let him ride it out to the absolute end? But again, these teams have playoff aspirations. So it'd be drastic just losing, just disaster. When do you bring in Teddy Bridgewater? Say the Saints start 0-6, 1-5. And say it's because Drew Brees looks like a shot fighter. Or with Phillip Rivers. When do you sit him down? That fiery guy. Whew, that'd be a tough conversation. But at some point it may be necessary. Chargers, 12 wins last season, expected to be in the playoff mix yet again. And they have their sights on getting over the hump. Just like the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have their sights on getting over the hump. That is the New England Patriots. So when would the Chargers sub in Tyrod Taylor? We're talking about Bridgewater, a guy that has starting experience. He's been to the playoffs. Tyrod Taylor, similar situation. Little bit of a different story when it comes to Tom Brady, who's backed up by an older quarterback, but it's Brian Hoyer. Little bit of a different story as well when you talk about the Steelers and Big Ben, who's backed up by Mason Rudolph, a former third-round pick. Different story with those two because they're not guys that have been there, done that as a starter. Brian Hoyer, he's probably the 12th guy on the list that we spoke about earlier as far as ranking the top backup quarterbacks. The next guy on that list to round out the top dozen would probably be Brian Hoyer. If for anything, his longevity, he's been on a few teams, he's come in to start before. He has. Again, backup for a reason. So, how many games do you give these guys? 0-4, 0-6, 2-8, 3-10? Like, seriously, think about this. You're a Saints fan, or you're the Saints GM or coaching staff. You think you're there, and Drew Brees, I know the last couple of seasons, he's been throwing a few ducks after Thanksgiving in the wintertime. The final stretch of the season, wear and tear over the years, wear and tear over the season. What if that happens earlier? What if it's gone? Or he's throwing picks? How long do you give him? You know he's a Hall of Famer. Do you give these guys more games than the Giants are giving Eli Manning? Because they're giving Eli Manning everything. All the chances in the world. All the games. Do you do that with these guys? It's fair. It's fair to say, yeah, you give them 16. Really, though? What if you're like 4-12, 3-13? It's not my expectation, but something to think about. Again, we're talking playoffs. We're talking playoffs. Super Bowl. The Patriots are defending a Super Bowl. The Steelers won another one. The Chargers are thirsty. They're hungry for their first. The Saints won another one before Brees hangs it up. So now that I laid that out for you, the guy that's showing the most signs of wear and tear is Drew Brees. This may sound harsh, but I give him 6 games. If you're 1-5, 0-6, Teddy Bridgewater. Insert him into the lineup if you're Sean Payton. You believe in yourself as a play caller, as an orchestrator. And Bridgewater mirrors a strength of Drew Brees, which is completion percentage. You build offense around that with Drew Brees. Not much has to change if you sub in Bridgewater. Phillip Rivers. We gave Drew Brees 6 games because I've seen wear and tear the past couple of years. Rivers has been an Iron Man. But if you're losing, he moved to LA and he wasn't down with that. And it's his fault. Multiple pick games or something like that. He has a supporting cast, doesn't he, to succeed, to win another 12, to make the playoffs again? Possibly make the Super Bowl if they can either get over the Patriots hump or avoid them and hope someone else beats them. I mean, it's tough. These are tough questions. These are great quarterbacks. I'd probably go 4 games with Phillip Rivers. They'd go 6 or 8 is what my guess would be before inserting Tyrod Taylor. I mean, you got Hunter Henry at tight end. He's going to be an elite tight end. Keenan Allen. You created more snaps, more opportunities for Mike Williams. Austin Eckler. He helps you in the receiving game as well, in the pass game. They have some players. They should be winning games. Tyrod would come in if I were there if they're 0-4. I wouldn't go 1-3. I wouldn't overreact there. But we're talking 4 out of 16 games is a quarter of the year. 0-4 could end your season. Then you're moving on anyway, right? If you're not a good team. So, Big Ben. Oh, man, the leadership questions I've had for a couple of years. Now everyone else is catching up because there's been some noteworthy transactions and the losses of Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell in the same offseason. We all saw this coming, though, didn't we? 4 games, I think, is too harsh for Pittsburgh to follow through with. 6 games, they may still be stubborn, but that's where I'll go, is 6 games. Same with Drew Brees. Because, granted, you're not going with an older quarterback like Brian Hoyer. You're not going with a guy that started extensive games in Tyrod Taylor and Teddy Bridgewater. You have a 3rd rounder that hasn't played much football. But he's a 3rd rounder. He didn't go undrafted. Drafted 3 rounds higher than Tom Brady was. Just saying. But yeah. So they buy this guy in Rudolph. And Big Ben, he gets banged up every year. And he lets us know about it. But he plays through it, even if it's poor. Even if it's poor. Gets banged up. If you connect the dots, I don't think my 6-game pull Big Ben theory is too unrealistic. And then Tom Brady, if it's just Brian Hoyer, unless they like one of the younger backups on the team, and they might, because there's a guy, but man, you probably go 8 to 10 games with Tom. 8 or 9 may win the division. So a 1-7, 2-6 start, they're still in it. They're still in it. Breeze in the NFC South, tough division. Phillip Rivers in the AFC West, tough division. Big Ben, AFC North, it's a tougher division than it's been in recent memory. The AFC East, although it seems promising with young quarterbacks, has been the weakest division in the league for years. So Brady would probably get 8 to 10 games before they reluctantly, but were forced to possibly move on from him. All right, and the last thing we'll talk about today is the quarterback tiers. We've already gone through the rankings of quarterbacks. Just going to give you the tiers. Quarterbacks are always on my mind. I love the quarterback position and the ability to develop year to year. And there's a lot of fascinating situations. So the QB groups, and at the very top, we know who they are, and they're great. Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers. Brady, Hall of Fame quarterback, always wins the division, knows how to get the job done, even if it's handing the ball off. And they might be doing that 30, 35 times a game. Drew Brees, another Hall of Fame quarterback, although I can't gloss over the years that he missed the postseason. It is a team game, and he doesn't get 100% of the blame for missing out. Despite his passing records, I probably wouldn't vote him in the Hall of Fame. You think I'm crazy? I'm just basing it on the premise of I think they allow too many players in. Then again, with the rules and who does get in, and there's some non-great players in there, Brees is going to make it. I'm just saying nowadays, like we talked about in the last segment, he does wear down a little bit after Thanksgiving in the winter. Yet, he's still the most accurate QB in the game today. Aaron Rodgers, if you can't blame Brees for his team missing the postseason, then the same should be taken into account for Rodgers. He's been getting a lot of heat the last couple of seasons. He's a special QB that's played through injuries. Last year, how didn't he miss half the year? He got hurt in week 1. Got hurt again like week 6 or something like that, mid-season. Aaron Rodgers, sensational passer, great feel and instincts. Man, we know who he is. We know who these guys are. The next tier, we also know who they are, and they're good. Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford, Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger, Cam Newton. Matt Ryan, his team just shored up the O-line on the left side in the draft. Calvin Ridley, second year in the offense. Devontae Freeman returns from injury. The entire defense returns from injuries. Ryan was an MVP before. He was an overlooked MVP candidate last year. And I think he's legit in the mix in 2019. I think he can make that jump, be one of those few quarterbacks to be in the elite realm. He's already up there for me. Next, Matthew Stafford. And these guys are in this tier because they're veteran quarterbacks. I just don't believe they're on that great level as the first 3 we mentioned. And of course, how many of them can be? So, Matthew Stafford. More targets to throw to now. They got Amendola in the slot, TJ Hawkinson in the draft, another year with Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones returns from injury, Kerryon Johnson should have more of an imprint on this offense. Offensive line is better. Matthew Stafford and the Lions, individually, collectively, can take a step forward this year. Phillip Rivers and his team oozing with talent around him. He has to prove he should be in the Hall of Fame conversation or only be remembered by Chargers fans. That's the cruel reality of it. He hasn't had the career Ben Roethlisberger has had. Big Ben in Pittsburgh, black and yellow, has greatness in him. He's been a top 5 quarterback throughout his career. I just don't think he is today and moving forward. I think he's been declining, understandably so. He still throws more than anyone in football, though. Heavily relied upon. Over 600 pass attempts is ridiculous every year, chucking the football. He's kind of the detriment to the team. I think it's him. I don't think AB did himself any favors, nor did Bell. Although I agree with Bell holding out, it's a different issue. Big Ben's been the detriment, so we'll see if anybody else starts to speak up now that the 2 quote-unquote malcontents are out of town. Yeah, Big Ben, Hall of Fame worthy, probably gets in. Again, I just think they allow too many people in the Hall. But whatever. I like Big Ben throughout his career. I kind of jumped off his bandwagon 2 years ago, but he's still a top 7 quarterback. Maybe top 10. He's between 7 and 10, right? So, Cam Newton, he's, still more of a run-first quarterback. He plays hero ball. I don't like hero ball players. So that's where I am on Cam, if you've heard me before. If not, there you go. He had an MVP year, which I consider the anomaly of his career. He's had success, making the playoffs 4 out of 8 seasons. That's half the time. 1 Super Bowl appearance. This is his second year with Norv Turner. He's coming off a career-high 67.9 completion rate, practically 68. That's phenomenal for Cam Newton. What a great coaching job. And you know what? Greg Olsen comes into the year healthy at the very least. Christian McCaffrey is a monster. And Curtis Samuel, young receiver. Also DJ Moore. They got some youth at the position. They can grow together. It's not like Cam Newton's too old. 68% completion rate. I had the arrow pointing up on Cam. He's just got to play a little bit less hero ball. And maybe I'll reassess. But I don't think he's a top 10 quarterback. And the guys that are to be determined in 2019 specifically, Russell Wilson, you're like, what? More on that in a second. Andrew Luck, huh? Patrick Mahomes, really? Carson Wentz, yeah, you see that, right? Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, Dak Prescott, Jared Goff. Some guys in the mix for new contracts. First off, realize the different subcategories. Luck, Wentz, and Mahomes have the keys to the car. Goff, he gets the keys and gets told where to go and has a curfew. Cousins and Carr can only drive when the sun is out, not at night, after hours. Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, they have the keys, but only get to drive with someone in the passenger seat. Let's call them Ezekiel, Elliot, and Chris Carson. And then Jameis Winston is learning how to drive. It's great, though. He's got a great driving instructor in Bruce Arians. So Andrew Luck, the veteran, would usually be in a better category than this, but the injuries, of course, and then the fact that the first half of last year he was still getting into rhythm, didn't really throw deep. He did the second half of the year and in the playoffs. Second year to prove yourself. Second chance after the serious shoulder injury. Second year removed. He's an annual MVP candidate, no doubt about that, and he's comparable to Mahomes and Wentz. The talent. Speaking of Mahomes, it's only been 1 year, guys. He did win Most Valuable Player. Phenomenal season. 50 freaking touchdowns. It surely helped to have a redshirt rookie year behind Alex Smith. We'll see how he follows the MVP season. He's the man. There's more film. He's electric. He has the instincts. We just have to see more. I don't think that's unfair. Because the same can be said for Carson Wentz. We have to see more. Because he's been hurt. I get it. But I'm telling you, he's a top 5 quarterback in the game. Don't be blind. 7-9 in 2016. Most passes as a rookie. 13 games. And then in 2018, where he was the MVP favorite, right? We all know that. We hear it, yada, 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 over and over. He was second in TDs despite missing 3 games. He had more TDs than the MVP Tom Brady. The Eagles were blowing out opponents. Wentz was a highlight reel. And then 11 games in 2019, his numbers improved. It's hard to see that, though. You get beneath the surface, you see the truth. He got his contract extension. He's moved on from knee and back injuries. In his time, the team's made 2 playoff appearances. Granted, he's probably only gets credit for 2017 and half credit for 2018, but it's not like Nick Foles put him in a good position going 1-1 the first 2 games either. Wentz kind of just replicated that record-wise. As for actual play on the field, big difference between Wentz and Foles. There's a reason Wentz is still in town. There's a reason Foles has only been a spot starter. Although I'm a big fan, I'm rooting for him. We'll talk about him more in a second. So Jared Goff, he makes the throws that he's told to make. He makes the throws. Be totally positive about that. He's just more of a computer. And Sean McVay is like the data scientist. Just nothing wrong with that. It's been working for them. Super Bowl appearance, 2 playoff appearances together in 3 seasons. Let's see. Actually, they're 2 for 2 in playoff appearances. Goff's first season was with Jeff Fisher, of course. But yeah, Goff, the next thing I want to see in his development, as well as Coach McVay's, because coaches can still develop and get better as well, is not to spit every word out through your headset at Goff to 15 seconds of every play, of every drive, of every game, of every season. It may have been the recipe leading up to this point, but now it's time to take the training wheels off because you're going to need him. If you're that great of a coach, create an extension of you in Goff. That's what we need to see. That's what could finish the deal for a Rams Super Bowl. Kirk Cousins, better than most people think. He's got a good supporting cast. Dalvin Cook for now is healthy. Should help provide balanced offense. And you know what? Cousins has been asked to throw a ton by Washington, now Minnesota. Only a quarter of the quarterbacks throw 600 plus passes, and Cousins is usually one of them. It's a lot to be relied on as the main catalyst of the offense. Kirk Cousins has been one of those quarterbacks, believe it or not. Derek Carr had an MVP campaign before, got injured at the end of the year, missed the playoff game, unfortunate. Raiders haven't been the same since, but he's a veteran now. Second year in a new regime. This is the best supporting cast he's had. Antonio Brown, Tyrell Williams, first round Josh Jacobs at running back. Offensive line was elite a few years ago. They've gone through their struggles, but I don't think they're bottom 5 or bottom 10. All I'm saying with DC is that we've seen him play good football before. Don't be surprised when he plays good football again. All right, Dak Prescott, 2 playoff appearances in 3 seasons, 1 and 2 in the playoffs. Sometimes it's ugly football. He is considered a game manager. He's made plays with games on the line, clutch plays as you would call them. He's been a quarterback more comfortable throwing outside the hashes and throwing checkdowns. It's fine. Not everyone is the best quarterback in the game. Sometimes you're going to have a game manager that's capable of winning you a game when you need a drive out of him. That's a compliment. That's a compliment. We did see vulnerabilities without Zeke in 2017 when he was suspended for 6 games. I'm not going to allow that to make me feel Dak Prescott is between average and good forever. But that's where I have him right now until further notice. Show me what you did the end of last year with Cooper and company after you got a legitimate number 1 receiver. Show me that this year for 3/4 of the games. I'll buy into you. Russell Wilson, when it comes to him, let me tell you this. 20 quarterbacks threw more passes than him. He's had playoff appearances in 6 of 7 seasons, and that's phenomenal. It's what you want and hope for. You have a chance every year. He's the best run-first QB in the game, and I say that because, you know what? He's very efficient, accurate through 33 TDs in the end zone. 33 TDs in the red zone, led the league. I believe he had 35 overall. It's only 2 outside of the 20. That's pretty much the only time he threw the ball. It's in the red zone. It's their formula for success with the rebuilding defense. 2 good running backs. You lose Doug Baldwin. Insert Tyler Lockett, who had 10 TDs. We'll see if that number goes up, or if he can even maintain double digits. A lot of young receivers. No notable tight ends. So I see it. He doesn't have the strongest supporting cast. I get it. Doesn't have the strongest offensive line, but they are very improved. So you can see the reason for their formula. But I'm grading the individual at quarterback. Wilson doesn't throw a lot. 21st in pass attempts. Efficient, amazing in the red zone. Great for fantasy football. But in real life, I'm not saying he's the 20th best quarterback. I'm just saying he's not a top 10 quarterback to me. I need to see him take a step forward in the passing game. And then for 2019, these are the make or break quarterbacks: Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, Andy Dalton, Joe Flacco. Winston gets Bruce Arians now. If he can't work with him, Winston's out of town. He'll be out. He's got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate. No excuses. You have Bruce Arians in the fold. This is your make or break year. Or you'll really have time to go get some more lobster. All right, Marcus Mariota, healthier than you would think. He's missed games every year, just 9 total, though, in 4 seasons. 1 playoff appearance. He's 1-1 overall. There's a reason Tennessee acquired Ryan Tannehill. We spoke about him earlier in our backup quarterback rankings. Mariota, this is it. A.J. Brown, highly drafted receiver. Derrick Henry, highly drafted running back. Oh, this year they got you another receiver. A.J. Brown this time. The first guy I meant was Corey Davis. Corey Davis, A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry. And although older at tight end, Delaney Walker comes back. You have Jonnu Smith, who was a third down tight end, I believe, a few years back. Top 5 offensive line in the game. I would argue is top 3. You're out of excuses, man. I've never bought into you. It's not because I don't like you, because I don't know you. I just haven't bought into you as a quarterback. I buy into Ryan Tannehill, who's holding the clipboard, chomping at the bit right behind you, though. So you better perform. Andy Dalton, he gets an offensive-minded head coach. He gets to move on. Fresh air from Marvin Lewis to Zach Taylor. Healthy Joe Mixon. A.J. Green will be back at some point. Tyler Eifert, healthy to start the season. Tyler Boyd, 1,000-yard receiver last year. John Ross was the 9th overall pick a couple years ago. It's time that Dalton helps Ross take the step forward. That Dalton uses Ross, uses Boyd. A.J. Green when he's back. Mixon, he's going to be involved on the ground, but also through the air. Safety outlet for Dalton. New head coach that's offensive-minded. Here's your shot, man. Here's your shot. You don't have the best offensive line, I get it. Just get the ball out quick. Get the ball out quick, and you can have some success this season. Joe Flacco, he's on a second team now. You get docked points when that happens. Got ousted by a playoff caliber team. This is his first season in Denver, but considering they've gone through musical quarterbacks, he has to play well enough to stick around, you would think. Drew Lock right behind him, inexperienced, needs time to sit. We get it. Flacco, he's played outdoors in some weather in Baltimore, Maryland. Now he comes to Denver. Denver may not be a playoff team in your eyes, but they're not far. Look at their roster, offense and defense. They're not far. Vic Fangio, he's bringing a better defense, at least strategically. The offense, it hurts. Emmanuel Sanders is recovering from an Achilles. We don't know he'll be the same. I was one of the highest people on Emmanuel Sanders. I have my doubts this year. Age plus Achilles equals doubts. Cortland Sutton, I don't know. Deshaun Hamilton, I don't know. I buy the backfield. They got some good options there, and they're going to be a running team. Joe Flacco, all you have to do is excel on play action. That's all you have to do. Stout defense, offense predicated on the ground. All you have to do, excel in play action. And then the to-be-determined quarterbacks, not this season, but in 2020. That's just how these situations are, whether they're young enough or a new team or returning from injury. That's Baker Mayfield, Deshaun Watson, Jimmy Garoppolo, Mitch Trubisky, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Nick Foles. Mayfield, accurate downfield. He's one of the guys. He's had expectations this season. For better or worse, this is not the year to grade Baker Mayfield. Second year in the offense, but now this head coach, it's his first year. First year with OBJ. So there's some new. I understand. You got to develop chemistry. You got to develop as a quarterback individually, see more defenses, play in more situations. And that's going to be kind of the sense I have with all of these players here. That's what I just described as Mayfield. You got to see more situations, get acclimated with this team, get acclimated with the players around you, see more defenses, because not all of these guys are veterans. So we have Deshaun Watson. He's electric. Gets rushing TDs. I think he's smart when he runs. He has a beautiful flick when he's throwing deep. His accuracy is a strength. It's just bummer. He's got sacked 62 times. The O-line's not the best. He does hold on to the ball a little bit, but I'm not going to put that on him so much. He's got a playoff appearance, just won the division. They got expectations. There's more film out. Hopefully not more sacks. But yeah, Watson, he gets Will Fuller to start the season healthy. Not many more changes around him. Duke Jackson will be a nice addition to that passing game. That's for sure. Jimmy Garoppolo, we don't know much. But I do love Coach Kyle Shanahan. He knows how to game plan an offense, put his players in position to succeed. This is why with backup quarterbacks we saw George Kittle break out. And then this is why some of the top guys in yards per catch were Dante Pettis and Marquise Goodwin. They have two backs that rank in the top 15 in rushes over 20 yards, and Tevin Coleman and Matt Breida. The Niners have some pieces. They're going to be more explosive, more home run than good, but that can make them good, if that makes sense. That's going to be an explosive team. I think they could be better. They can get better talent. But Shanahan and the ingredients he has can work to improve in the win column. Nick Foles, he's had highs and lows. Perhaps this is his last shot to be a starter. He's a veteran. He's a champion, yes, but he grabbed the baton. He grabbed the baton. He was the relief pitcher. He hasn't done it from week one throughout. This is his chance now. He's on a team with playoff aspirations, made it 2 years ago, moved on from their quarterback in Bortles. They think they're back. He will have some time since they're used to Bortles. And so the leash, it'll be long, just not as long as Bortles had. And he's reunited with OC John DeFilippo. They were together in Philadelphia. So he's got a long leash. It's just not going to be Blake Bortles long. And then to be determined in general, Alex Smith, Josh Rosen. Smith, we know who he was, and if he plays again, will he decrease his running? You would think he would. Will he work on his deep ball and willingness to throw it like he did in his last year, holding off Pat Mahomes? I don't know. I want to say I think he would. As a guy that got to be on the sidelines, watched the little bits of changes in football, especially offensively, that he take more shots like he did. I like to believe so. But yes, he does have a long journey back, as we discussed earlier. And then Josh Rosen, he's in a competition with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Both kind of underwhelming, but it's basically the situation. We don't know. We don't know about Josh Rosen yet. Will he eventually start? We think so. So that's just to be determined. And then borderline starters or elite backups, as we discussed. Ryan Fitzpatrick, Case Keenum, Ryan Tannehill. We talked about those guys earlier. Eli Manning is now on this list. Not that Daniel Jones has the pocket presence, as we also touched upon. It's going to throw short. And he doesn't have the best receiving core. And I'd say his offensive line is around average. maybe a little bit above. Maybe. And that's a maybe. We're near the end here. We're near the end here. And when you go from low expectations to kind of no expectations, tick, tick. All right, diehards, that's going to do it this time around. We're almost there. We are almost there to week 1. Get pumped up because I am. That's for damn sure. And I'll see you on the other side. I'm out.